Hurricane preparedness. Over the years, we have dodged the bullet many times. And we can start to think that we're immune from getting hit with a hurricane. However, in '64, we got hit with Hurricane Dora. How many of you remember that one? There's only a few people who remember that one. It came right up to St. John's. Then in 2016, we had Matthew, which was enormous, that came up the coast. That created a little more problems for us. And then in 17, we had Irma, and that gave us a huge surge through the river air. And the story here is that you don't have to get hit directly by a hurricane to have it be a problem. Statistically, in a 5-year period, and this is generated by somebody at a higher pay grade than my statistical analysis ability, in a 5-year period, we have a 43% chance of getting hurricane force winds here in Jacksonville in any 5-year period. So it's not really if, but it's when something happens. And this causes lots and lots of damages. That B stands for billions. Now, these are hurricanes that hit Florida, not necessarily Jacksonville, but we're talking Ian at $111 billion. Helene, 78. Milton, 34. Irma, $64 billion worth of damages. And this is boats, marinas, housing, infrastructure. It's a serious problem that we have when one of these things hits. Now, the city of Jacksonville does a good job of trying to keep us alert. And in fact, on your tables, there is the recent Hurricane Preparedness Guide. And right over here behind Mr. Suber, there's a big stack of them. So if there's anybody who wants one and you didn't get it in your mailbox, please feel free to take one of those. Not only do we have to worry about the winds, but we have to worry about the surge. We have to worry about where your boat's going to be. How is it going to be secured? Is my boat going to be covered by insurance if it gets totally destroyed? Or if my boat destroys something else, how am I going to be responsible for that? These are the issues that we have to deal with. And tonight, we've assembled a blue ribbon committee of folks to talk about how to prepare. And as I call them out, please come on down and jump in a seat. Right here from First Coast News, we have Lewis Turner, who's the chief meteorologist. Bill Weinbecker, who we all know and love, is going to be our representative boat owner. Carter Myers is the waterfront director, or chief in charge of all things operational in the front of the Florida Yacht Club. John Beal is a marine insurance executive who has been here before and spoken with us. I think we need another chair. Yeah. Scott Stapleton is here from Towboat US, and I have to put a special thanks out. If you looked at the promotion, Mike Haas from Seatow was going to be here but was not able to make it. And at the very last minute, Scott jumped in and said, sure, I'll come and talk. So I really appreciate that from Scott. And lastly, but certainly not least, is Jim Suber, who has been the dock master for the city of Jacksonville for how long now? Almost 20 years. Great. Thank you, gentlemen. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to pose a question or two, and we're going to have our panelists discuss. And in fact, we're going to have a microphone holder right here. Loudest. There we go. A little bit more. There we go. All right. And after a couple of rounds of questions, then we're going to have a question and answer period as well. Okay? So the first question is going to go off to Lewis. There we go. Lewis, what forecast information should the boat owners be looking for? What should we keep our eyes open to?
You hit on it there with that big one. The surge, the winds, right? That's first and foremost. Surge is the number one killer, but number one property damager when it comes to hurricanes. You mentioned Hurricane Irma, which really Irma was a tropical storm by the time it got to us. There's no such thing as just a when it comes to storms. There's no just a tropical storm. There's about 1,000 different things that lined up with Irma that led to about 6 feet worth of storm surge downtown. We had 2 weeks of a nor'easter before that, and 24 inches of rain on top of it. So we gotta be watching surge number one. All right, obviously wind is going to toss the boat about, so we're going to be watching for that. Remember, tropical storm force winds. Whenever you have a tropical storm force watch, that means you've got 39-mile-an-hour winds and up forecast within a 36 to 48-hour period. The warning more serious, that means you're going to be getting those winds within 24 hours. That is imminent. And anything 39 miles an hour and above, that's going to have potential to do damage.
So it's that 39-mile-an-hour trigger.
That's the trigger.
Can you pass that mic to Bill? So, Bill, as a boat owner, what catches your attention? When do your ears go up?
Well, the surge, certainly. And that's going to... All our boat owners will all have our boats tied up at our marinas with dock lines. When that surge comes up, I'm thinking of those lines getting tight and potentially parting. That's one thing. Right. Also, a wind direction. If I'm at Epping Forest and there's going to be massive winds from the east, not that big a deal. But if I'm over in Florida Yacht Club and the winds are going to be from the east, northeast, it's going to be horrendous. So I'm looking at wind direction, which...
When does the flag go up? When does the hair go up on the back of your neck? When do you start paying attention to the weather forecast?
When I look at the National Hurricane Center forecast, and that eye is going right over Jacksonville.
Something like that?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. That's what I look at. It's all probability. This is a probabilistic curve. Maybe Lewis will talk about that, but yeah.
Lewis, tell us how much that can change.
It changes a ton, right? Now, I will say, since 1995, the error in that forecast cone within 3 days, so you're 3 days out, has gotten to about 50 miles. So keep that in mind. That's pretty tight. Hurricane Center has gotten really, really good, and we've gotten much better modeling when it comes to this. Remember, though, and this may be elementary knowledge, you may know this if you don't, and so forgive me if I'm going over things you do know, but I just want to go over the fact that that cone is anywhere within it is where the eye wall can pass, right? So anything the Hurricane Center would consider an accurate forecast cone if the eye of this particular storm passed over Pensacola or the Florida-Alabama line even, or was as far east as Fort Myers. Like that's still a pretty wide swath, right? So if you find yourself, and when my spidey sense really starts going up, it happens way before the cone, but when you start to see Jacksonville, the First Coast, Southeast Georgia, are what we consider our area anywhere within a cone, you need to start being ready. Should have been ready, first of hurricane season, but we know reality is. So that's the time, anytime you see a cone around the area.
Pass that off to Carter. Carter, as a waterfront director, and a storm is now on the way.
Sure.
What makes one boat easier to protect than another? Where should the boat be? What should it be done? I mean, what can we do prior to it?
Lewis alluded to this, but it's what you do pre-storm season that makes my life easy as a facility operator. When a storm is approaching is absolutely the wrong time to find out that your bilge pumps don't work and that you don't have enough lines, don't have enough fenders. So when my boat owners are responsible and go through that checklist, and June 1st, that makes my life so much easier. That's prep that I don't have to chase down. It's the difference between a successful prep and a not successful prep is the amount of scrambling that we're doing once something has a name attached to it.
And do you, as a facility owner, have a checklist that you provide to your boat owners, or are you expecting them to stay on top of that?
Yeah, so we do require boat owners to file an individual hurricane plan, so including their evacuation strategy, as well as like where their emergency equipment is, what they own, who their emergency contacts are, who can help if should they not be available. I run into this a lot where boat owners are traveling. It's summertime. They're absentee come storm season. Knowing who I am going to be working with directly, should that boat owner be gone, is a huge part of that as well.
John, so as a insurance guy, what questions should I as a boat owner have already answered so that I'm not calling you when the storm is named? What are the things I should already have covered and be aware of with regard to insurance?
Most people reach in their buffet and pull out their insurance policy, and they look at it and they're like, oh, I don't have this and I don't have that, or they're not sure what they have. They call their agent, our phone rings off the hook, and during these times with questions. And people even trying to buy insurance. I mean, I could sell a lot of insurance a week before a hurricane.
I bet.
But, well, I mean, you should know your deductibles. You should know what policy you bought. You should some policies require mandated, haul outs. Some don't even cover windstorm. Some people don't even know that because they weren't told that. And, it's just the differences between automobile and homeowners insurance and boaters insurance or yacht insurance is that yacht insurance, marine insurance is an uncontrolled line of business as far as the Department of Insurance concerned. So, and when you have a controlled line of insurance, the state mandates what wordings in the policy, what verbiage must exist by law, and they regulate the premiums and the rates. Marine insurance isn't that way. I guess there's not enough boats, even though Florida's one of the largest per capita boating areas on the planet. It's not like automobiles and homes where the consumers watched more closely and protected more closely. So if you put your imagination to use, you can easily figure out that an insurance company can manuscript a policy any way they see fit, and they can charge whatever premium they want. And so ponder that a little while, and you'll start getting a little nervous. So they should know what's in their policy.
All right, fair enough, fair enough. So now the storm is coming on, and we're actually going to go back to Lewis here.
Oh, you're asking me?
So
Thank you.
this is actually for everybody. I want to get everybody's opinion on this. When does the clock start ticking? That's it. I want to know exactly when this thing is coming in. When are you starting to really pay attention? So Lewis, as a meteorologist, I expect you're probably early in.
Right now.
Right now.
Every tropical wave that's now we've transitioned into the part of the hurricane season that we watch something called the African wave train, right? So waves are coming off the coast of Africa every day, right? Right now we've got something out there that you probably heard talk about, El Nino, that is tearing these things apart, right? But again, it's just going to take the one. So I'm watching every single wave that comes off the coast of Africa. I'm watching every cluster of thunderstorms that develops in the Bahamas, the Caribbean, and the Gulf. One of the things that we need to keep an eye out on during an El Nino year are the homegrown systems. These, when we get a front, and we saw this in our early tropical storms that came through already this year, the A and the B name storm, they generated off of a front that came through, developed in the Gulf, right? So nearshore waters, but yeah, the from essentially June 1 until I get to December, the clock is on.
So you're on right from the get-go.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Bill, put in a couple of sentences. When does that flag go up and the clock starts for you?
Well, I kind of agree. I'm kind of a weather geek. I'm looking at those investigations coming across the latitudes, just coming towards us. Read up what National Hurricane Center says. They have pretty good prediction. But realistically, as far as taking action, I'd say about a week out, starting to think about it. Because as boat owners, we don't only have our boats to prepare. We have our houses, our cars, families, everything else you need to get going. You don't want to push that off to the end because it's probably going to be the boat that you don't prepare the best. And that can be consequential to the marina, to other boats in your marina. So start early.
Good.
Yeah, again, as a facility operator, I have to watch every wave as well, named or not. But the official club stance has 72-hour, 48-hour, and 24-hour markers that are the official mandates that we give to boat owners. It's also our internal triggers for what we should have prepared from a club property standpoint.
And John, when do you stop selling insurance?
Well, the insurance companies usually put out a moratorium on selling coverage 72 hours in advance of landfall. And most of the time they just shut it off. They don't even look at the cone of certainty. They just shut off underwriting.
No risk.
And one carrier will write insurance, but they'll bind it with an exclusion for the existing existing hurricane.
So, Scott, tell us when the clock starts for you, because I imagine you're going to have to do different things than what the regular boat owner does.
Well, for us, like it was explained earlier, it's June 1st. I mean, that's when you really start looking at it. I think one of the things that the majority of people, I don't know if they take for granted or if they're lackadaisical, it does not have to be a named storm to provide damage. One of our biggest things is a tired bilge. You get nominal amounts of rain and it will fill up a bilge, and a few days later you know, the bilge keeps up and keeps the boat pumped out, but a few days later, after it's sunny, they didn't think to recharge the batteries, they didn't think to tend anything like that. We get one more rain, and then it's all over. So it doesn't have to be wind or catastrophic. It's the amount of water that gets in a boat that keeping the batteries up.
So most of us are worried about protecting our property, whereas you've got to be ready to go after the storm has gone by to respond to all these boats that are now destroyed. Is there a procedure that you go through as the storm comes up to protect your equipment so that it's ready?
Usually a day or two before predicted landfall, I'll pull all the boats out, pull the plugs, put them on a trailer, strap them down, try and put them on the lee side of any, you know, major structure that is going to block most of the wind and everything like that, and do the best I can to keep them out of trouble. And then as soon as everything passes, then we'll put it back together and put it back in the water as soon as the captain opens the port, makes it accessible. I'm sorry? Yes, sir. Actually, I've got a couple of fuel tanks that I keep just for that purpose on trailers so I can fuel my own boats.
Jim, tell us about the city. What does the city do as the storm is approaching? What are the time ticks that they keep track of? The bridges close, et cetera, et cetera. What do we need to know from the city standpoint?
Well, basically the way we look at it is kind of like these other guys when hurricane season starts and it becomes that time. As you can see, early things go out on behalf of the city in cooperation with our meteorologists and our people, Coast Guard, et cetera, to start warning people. And biggest thing is preparation. And as far as the city properties go, we start during hurricane season, we look at things, all of our facilities, all of our docks. We need to make sure everything stays buttoned up, tightened up, and we keep our contractors quite busy. But when those storms start coming off, especially the waves that's coming off of Africa, I'm a Dora geek. I was sitting through a window watching Dora happen at my house. Watched a tree go down and watched another tree go halfway down. So I started watching hurricanes from the beginning just to see. But when they start anywhere from Alabama all the way up to the Outer Banks, anything can happen in Florida. They could move, they could change. So I start paying attention to them anytime there's in this part of the world. And it's what we do is we go around to every one of our facilities, take photos that are got time stamped photos for pre-stuff, and then we get all that squared away, and then all of our facilities like our floating docks and stuff like that, we start securing them because we can't help the fact they're going to tear up if they do. What we don't want them to do is tear up and then start floating down the river, and we had that happen in Irma. They didn't float down the river, but they held on top of our pilings and stuff. So the damage is going to be there, and we just need to document it and make sure after the fact we go around and do it immediately. As soon as it's clear it's safe to go out and on the street, we start going around and doing assessments of damage and start taking another set of pictures. And all that is driven by the mighty FEMA. FEMA is they're our money makers. And so that's how these cities and the public actually gets through some of these major incidents that might happen. We've been really lucky here in Duval County for years, and Irma kind of took us by surprise a little bit. Me, it did. I was thinking it was over on the West Coast and it was going to be fine, but then I started watching the Gulf empty, and then the St. Johns River was filling. It wasn't looking that good, but that's the kind of stuff you just got to be ready. And tying lines, if you have a boat in the water, tying lines that are not just to your floating dock, but to hard surface, tie high, and that way if they go up and they damage your boat, at least your boat's going to be somewhere in that vicinity there so you can at least retrieve it. So those are the kind of things that I look for.
Jim, from the city standpoint, is there a time or a condition where the bridge is locked down, or the waterways close, or the authorities come off the water?
Yeah, there is. The wind is 40 miles an hour. That's what the bridges is when they start locking down and closing off. The waterways, when the storm is getting to the point where it's at or about to approach tropical level status, then the sheriff's office and the Coast Guard and everybody secures their equipment, and they get off the water. The Coast Guard comes in to enter downtown Jacksonville. We let them. They're the only boat that we actually allow to be on city docks during a storm, because we can trust them to do the right thing when they're there. If it starts looking bad and they have to leave the dock, they know how to do it. And but they come in until that storm passes. The Coast Guard or the captain of the port gives an order that the port's closed, and at that time, it goes through levels, and so once it reaches the levels of, the port's going to be closed, or anybody that's in port has to stay. He gives different orders, and so that's what you live by. That's
Good.
what you do.
Thank you. Pass that off to John, if you would. John, so we're looking at this. We've had a hurricane. It's a disaster. My boat is half underwater. I'm coming to the insurance guy. What do I need to bring to you? What should I document before Scott starts dragging my boat out of the water? Is there something that you want us to do before we put our hands on our wreckage?
If you can find your boat, you can call in, and
Yeah.
you can call in and put a claim in through our office,
Okay.
or through whoever your agent is. What the insurance company, what we've always told our clients over the years is the kind of the benchmark or the guidepost to follow is just act the way you would in the absence of insurance. And usually that's good enough to take care of the insurance company. If they know you're, treating it as though, they're part of the loss or most of the loss. And if you're acting as though you don't have insurance, you're acting in their best interest.
That probably goes more towards prior to the storm hitting than after.
Yeah, but it depends. I mean, there's ways to mitigate if you can get to your boat. I mean, sometimes you have no choice. Sometimes you can't find it.
Right.
Sometimes there's 4 or 5 boats laying on top of it. Sometimes they just drifted off and they're mysteriously unscathed. I mean,
Right.
so you just never know. It's a little bit chaotic, especially if it's a bad storm.
I worked for CETO, and after, I think it was Irma, I was down in, on the west side of the river. We showed up, and there was a boat that ended up in a cluster of palm trees. And we looked at it, and we said, we don't know which is going to go, the boat or the trees, but there's going to be a chainsaw involved.
Yeah, or crane.
Right, so it is a situation where they will just float away. If you could pass that to Scott. Scott, you're looking at that, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, what do I do? How do you prioritize how you're going to start the work? Who is it you deal with? Is it customers? Are you under the direction of the Coast Guard? How does it work after a storm?
No, we're under direct control, well, not control, but guidance of the insurance companies. You can have anybody come out here and tell you, oh, yeah, that's my boat. I've got this insurance. Just go ahead and take care of it. They said it's no problem. You don't want to get tied up with that, because 9 times out of 10, the people that do that are don't have insurance. So the insurance companies will go down, and they have a system that they follow. Go ahead.
Closer.
I'm sorry?
Look closer.
Oh, sorry. They have a system that they follow. In whatever order the claims come in, they usually have a individual that come out, will identify the boat, will tag the boat, and then they send out the orders, and then you go down and go in order of what you're assigned. Harvey was a real good example of that. Over in Texas, when Harvey went through, it was the system that they had was just absolutely amazing. It was, I mean, you woke up and you called them and they had a list. There's this boat, this is the address. They had people that found them for you already. And the description of them, all you had to do is just follow that order. So they really do, the insurance company make it really easy for us.
Time for questions and answers. You got a lot of talent and experience up here. Now you're going to have to yell them out because I can't reach everybody with a mic.
This is for the Florida Yacht Club. At some point, do you make your members leave the marina, and where do they go?
That's a $1 million question. As fewer and fewer of the boatyards are accepting hurricane haulouts, that's certainly a question that we wrestle with. Because we are a private club, we do have a little more latitude for requiring an evacuation than some other facilities may. We also have a brand new rock jetty that's protecting our harbor. That's something that the club has never had before. So we have 18,000 tons of granite boulder that's surrounding the facility for the first time ever. So there may still be a circumstance where we require evacuation. It's going to be more rare than it was prior to this level of protection. But we do still require, like I said, for every member to file a hurricane plan, including an evacuation, should they be required to leave that front basin. Even if the answer is that they're going to go anchor somewhere in a cove away from our docks, maybe they have a hurricane contract at one of the marinas. Whatever the answer is, we do require them to have a plan because ultimately it's the boats that cause the damage to the docks. The docks themselves are largely fine through most storm situations. So if we can get them cleared out, the club property survives, and everybody can come home after the storm. So yeah, it is variable, and I have the internal club hurricane plan with me in case anybody wanted to see it. But we have not pigeonholed ourselves into an exact category on that because there's so many factors. So everything, and it's all spelled out in the plan, like what the deciding factors are going to be that the board's going to use, and so that's everything. That's tides at time of arrival, direction of approach, the intensification forecast, all those things weigh into that. So we don't say it's one particular category because there are so many extenuating factors. But like I said, there is still a trigger, and it's up to our board and myself to decide. It's a tough decision. So we have two different sides of our marina because the property does go all the way through the peninsula. So our front side harbor, we call that the Riverside Marina. That's typically where evacuation would occur. Through my tenure, we've never required the folks on the cove side to evacuate. And other boats will go back there and anchor as well. If I have empty slips, we'll go ahead and use those because it is so protected. There's no fetch back there. Obviously, it's still it's still subject to swell, but because there is no fetch, there's really not nearly the risk back there. So we cram that as full as we can. Not all of my boats. We can only get boats up to a certain size into that cove. There's depth restrictions, and I just don't have room for everybody, unfortunately.
Don't the depth restrictions go away when the surge comes in? Right. Huh? We got a question back here.
So it's less about the strength of the Bermuda High and how broad the Bermuda High is. So if you think about the way, for instance, the weather we have right now, big subtropical ridge that attaches to the Bermuda High. We've got this heat dome over us. We've got this massive high pressure that essentially is connected from southeastern United States east of Bermuda. That's good for Florida because what that does is act like a cap, keeping potential storms down south and going through the Caribbean, which is what we want right now. We want any tropical wave to try to enter the gates of the Lesser Antilles and get into that Caribbean cemetery, because it's not ideal for any tropical development right now. If you get a strong Bermuda high that's a little tighter, and it has migrated a little bit further to the east, and it's just standalone a little bit further to the east, maybe situated between Bermuda and the Azores, you can get that could set up bad for Florida or the Carolinas, because that storm will then ride right up that Bermuda high. The worst case scenario, and it's the scenario with Dora, is something called the Omega blocker. All right, so you've got a Bermuda high out there that is kind of pulling a storm back to recurve. The Omega blocker is a high pressure system that will set up over New England. All right, and that acts like a second cap, and it looks like the shape of an Omega. You get the trough out west, you get the ridge setting up east. That will block, and essentially that's exactly, and it's a rarity, but it's what allowed Dora, as it was curving, to kind of hold that line and make landfall there in St. Augustine. So keep that terminology. A broad high is good for Florida. A tighter, stronger high that's situated kind of just east of Bermuda, not great. The Omega blocker set up over New England, that's kind of your, that's the one you watch synoptically that could lead to landfall in Florida. East Coast.
Other questions? Here we got one over here.
So this is a question both for insurance and facilities and the boat owner. Our policy when we first got it required that to be covered for a named storm, we had to haul out the boat, remove the mast, and have it situated so that there was no other boat that if our boat toppled over, that it would cause any damage. And I called them and I said, you give me a list of marinas that will do this, and we'll go there. Because I don't know any marinas that give you enough space that it can tip over. But how common is that in insurance? And ultimately what I said to them, I said, give me a list. And they said, well, we don't have a list, we'll just cross that off the requirements. Great. But how common is that in insurance? Do facilities just tell people you got to get out? And then for Bill, where do you go? And what do you do? Because good luck getting somebody to haul you out 3 days before a storm and take your mast down and give you enough space.
It depends on the insurance company and who your insurance is written with. In a storm, it's considered, it's every man for himself. I mean, you can't cross liability, or the courts would be jammed up for years. If boat owners were suing marinas or each other or so on and so forth, it'd turn into a giant knot. So, did that answer your question?
Is haul out a pretty common requirement?
If it's not a requirement, I think it should be, but there aren't enough spots for people to haul out. I mean, that's absolutely 100% safest place to be. If you can secure a haul out on a seasonal basis, that's my suggestion. Take a high deductible and get a haul out. I mean, that would be my advice.
I'm interested in hearing.
I don't think they will.
I'm interested in hearing from Bill where he's going to take his boat on this next big hurricane coming.
He's going to be right behind Adam in Pirates Cove.
Well, as Carter was saying before, they have shut down Florida Yacht Club, and I've been in the situation where they said, hit the road. Fortunately, I had a standing agreement with one of the marinas on Jolington Creek, not Jolington, Ortega at Sadler, and I called up and enacted that handshake clause. I'm like, all right, I'm ready to get pulled. And he said, okay. And he remembered the conversation. But you can set something up ahead of time with a marina like that. Contingency, unfortunately, those places are getting fewer and fewer. We're seeing that. Ortega River Boat Yard used to be the big yard up in Ortega. They could handle many boats. That's gone. Now that's condos. And plan ahead. And I do have Pirates Cove behind Florida Yacht Club. If it came down to it, I would get 3-4 anchors, go in there, get some heavy tackle, and put her in there.
Other questions? Other questions? This is your time, right in the back.
You got a mic right here.
After a storm, and I've seen some boats that are not on the hard, but half sunk or up on the shore. Is there someone we would call particularly? Do we just see them and go by? What is there something we should do, you know, as responsible boaters to report boats that seem to be there a really long time?
Maybe Jim's question right down there.
Yes, just like we're having right now we pull out 6 boats and we got 7 replacing them. So we're going through that, but FWC has to start things off here in Duval County, actually state of Florida for the most part. Very few municipal sheriff's office or municipal police departments or county sheriff's office actually do derelict vessels, and that's basically what that becomes at that point. Just because it's ugly is not derelict though. It's got to show that it's got no means of propulsion and it's sunk or things like that. So the FWC has to start the ball, and then just like here in Duval County, I back them up with help of getting contractors and helping them get. They give 100% grant money. Then after a storm hits Florida, they open up their requirements and they start just going and removing vessels and bringing them up on the hard and then letting the insurance companies work through what they can from there, rather than having them in the water causing more damage and more issues with environmentally. So after storms, they do a lot of just pulling them out and dealing with it after the fact and working their way through it. But so there's a major funding source that the Florida State Legislature has provided for FWC to manage, and they have Boating and Waterway section in Tallahassee that they have they have a bunch that deals with derelict vessels on a daily basis. You live where? Yes, sir. You got a new one that sunk the other day. 2. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah, but they're being worked by FWC, and you have to understand, in order to pull them and destroy them, it's somebody's property. So the lawyers make you do due diligence, and so they have a big investigation that they have to do before they can get to a certain point. When they tag the vessel as it being really derelict, at that point, there's a cost factor that just goes sky high for the person that owns that boat. And so they have to, and you have to understand, they got 21 days from the time they put a sticker on it and send the return of either they signed it saying they got the mail or it was returned as not deliverable. At that end of that 21 days is what they have to do, is send it over to, they have to send it up their chain of command, which is all the way to a captain, and then it gets sent over to Tallahassee, and it goes up a procedure. It's a red tape nightmare. But the lawyers have got, and rightfully so, because you're going to destroy somebody's $100,000 boat. There's a procedure. They should have all be registered, and now there's new state law that you have to get a permit to anchor in the waterways of Duval or of the state of Florida. So that's being implemented. It hadn't been implemented all the way. They're still working through the procedure on it. Just July went into effect, and it was just voted on, I think, like in March or April by the state legislator, and the governor didn't sign it until July. So when it went into effect in July, they have to go through their procedures, and they got everything. Law enforcement, especially law enforcement, same thing in my line of work. There's a procedure, and there's a procedure manual that procedure goes in, and you have to follow that procedure all the way through to the end for legal purposes, obviously. So, and then you have officers that are investigating it. They have days off. They have deployments. We were going through a long time with half of the state of Florida FWC officers were deployed over in the Rio Grande, and so we were very limited on officers that were working derelict vessels because it's a law enforcement function technically, but it's not the highest priority of crime work, if you will. So they get to it and work it as they can. And so I had to learn that cool your jets attitude because I was getting the same frustration here in Duval County. And I serve on the Boating and Waterways, our Boating and Advisory Council for FWC, and I would go to every advisory council meeting, and all they were realizing is, what's he going to say about derelict vessels this time around? Because I was very frustrated over it, but they got a good point, and the lawyers, they run the show. If that helped your explanation, I don't know, but it didn't make you feel better, I know, but it is what it is.
All right.
There is a procedure. Scott would be able to tell that.
It's a lot more murky than you would think. The biggest thing in that is proof of ownership. I cannot touch a vessel. If a vessel was to blow up on your property that come from an anchorage, and you call me and say, hey, this boat's on my property, I want it out of here, I legally cannot touch it without the owner's permission. So we have to go through all that, what he was saying. We got to go through the guidelines and everything like that, try and prove ownership, and it can take a while, unfortunately. But liability, because if I was to come in there and remove it, and then the owner comes and says, I didn't give you permission, then I'm on the hook for everything, up for the value of the boat.
All right, we got time for one more question.
I was just going to ask, how much harder is it to raise that boat that's been underwater for a year than the one that's been underwater for a couple weeks?
It can make a lot trickier, absolutely. But unfortunately, there's not a whole lot we can do about it.
All right, gentlemen.
We have an example of that at Clapboard Creek. We got a grant to pay for one to get removed, and they bagged it, trying to lift it. After all that time about a year that it had been underwater out there, it was totally packed with mud and everything, and the bags wouldn't lift it. So finally they had to get more bags. They finally got enough bags where they could lift it up enough to where it was off the bottom, but then they got it halfway to where they were going to take it to bring it out of the water, and one of the bags slipped, and so now it's still sitting down there waiting for the next tactic. So it's a job.
Thank you for that. Final thoughts. Each one of you, if you could just give us 14 seconds or one thought you want to leave us with about hurricanes, preparing, recovering, dealing with the whole hurricane issue. Just start here with Jim. Go down the line.
Stay aware. Number one priority is try to pull it out of the water. If you can't pull it out of the water, double line it, triple line it, put lines everywhere you can find a place to put a line.
It's
And secure everything that's loose.
It's never too early. Start at June 1st. Make a plan, follow the plan. Don't forget about a hurricane until it has completely dissipated. The one that comes to mind, Ivan in 2004, went across the state, went out in the Atlantic, danced around, came right straight back.
Know your coverage, know your agent. Don't be coin operated. $150, $250 can mean all the difference in the world on the other end of a claim.
Yeah, please go through a full dress rehearsal June 1. Go through every system. Make sure there's nothing that's going to surprise you when a storm actually does come up. And know who's going to help you. If your boat is in a marina, don't count on there being staff or anyone else available to assist you. Their job is to take care of the facility, most likely. You're probably going to need another set of hands. Know who that partner in crime is going to be, especially if you're out of town any part of the summer.
And piggybacking on if you're out of town, have a set of dock lines, an additional set. Have them ready to go. If you have to call your bud, he can go down there, he or she, put those lines on your boat. It will help.
Just to remember, we have an El Nino year. We've been blessed last year with no direct impacts to the United States, but if you'll think back to 1992 and Hurricane Andrew, the A-name storm during a weakening El Nino year happened at the end of August. So you can still have these quote-unquote slow seasons, but it just takes the one. And then my second thought, every hurricane I've ever covered, I'm an indoor cat now, but I used to be an outdoor cat chasing these things. Every single hurricane I've ever covered in St. Augustine, and I'm going back to Ian, Nicole, and beyond, those damn mooring balls in St. Augustine for your sailboat, they always break off because there's always a boat that hits the Bridge Alliance. So I've covered it 15 times. Just be careful with that. I don't understand what happens, and I don't know who's responsible for it, but that's a question to be answered another day.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. Big round of applause for our panelists. As we can tell, it's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen, and the watchword is to be prepared. Be prepared.